Welcome to Global Watch. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. A crisis is shaking the global auto industry, sending shockwaves through boardrooms and factory floors from Detroit to Seoul. What began as a single event has rapidly escalated into a situation with far-reaching consequences, threatening the stability of one of the world's most interconnected sectors. At the center of this turmoil is Hyundai Motor Group, which is now reconsidering its massive, multi-billion-dollar investment in Georgia, USA. The company's state-of-the-art electric vehicle plant, once hailed as a symbol of international cooperation and economic growth, now stands at a crossroads. This isn't just a corporate dispute, it's a test of America's economic strategy and its reliability as a global partner. The decisions made here will ripple across international markets, affecting jobs, supply chains, and the future of green technology. The September 2025 raid on Hyundai's Georgia plant carried out by U.S. authorities has sent shock and confusion through the business world. Companies worldwide are now forced to reconsider the risks of investing in the U.S., questioning whether their assets and personnel are truly protected. At stake is the trust between the U.S. and key allies like South Korea, now locked in a tense diplomatic standoff. The diplomatic fallout has been swift, with emergency meetings and urgent calls for resolution echoing in both Washington and Seoul. The arrest of hundreds of South Korean citizens overseeing the plant's construction is seen as a deep betrayal, not only by Hyundai but by the South Korean public and government. Families are left in limbo, and the sense of injustice is fueling protests and calls for accountability. Now, Hyundai is weighing the possibility of moving billions in production elsewhere, considering new locations in Europe and Southeast Asia. This decision could reshape global supply chains and send a stark warning to other multinational corporations about the unpredictability of U.S. domestic policy. The message is clear. Even celebrated investments aren't safe from sudden policy shifts and political turmoil. Investors are watching nervously, and the future of American manufacturing hangs in the balance. The outcome of this crisis will define America's role in the global economy for years to come, shaping not only the auto industry but the very foundation of international business and trust. Hyundai's Meta plant in Georgia was meant to be a symbol of America's manufacturing revival. A $5.5 billion project promising over 8,000 high-paying jobs. The plant was a bipartisan triumph, anchoring the Southeast as the battery belt and boosting the U.S. in the race for electric vehicles. Hyundai chose Georgia for its incentives, port access, and business-friendly environment. The facility was set to attract more investment and transform the region's economy. Now that dream is unraveling. The trust that brought Hyundai to Georgia has been shattered, putting thousands of jobs and the state's reputation at risk. What was once a beacon of progress now stands as a warning of how quickly policy missteps can threaten economic success. The Hyundai crisis exposes a core contradiction in U.S. policy. On one hand, the country actively courts foreign investment, rolling out the red carpet for international companies and promising a business-friendly environment. American officials celebrate when global giants like Hyundai choose to build factories on U.S. soil, touting the benefits of new jobs, advanced technology, and economic growth. Yet, at the same time, the government cracks down on immigration, sending a very different message to the foreign workers and experts who are essential to these projects. Immigration raids and strict border controls create an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty, even as the country claims to welcome global talent. Tariffs and trade policies pressured automakers like Hyundai to set up manufacturing in America, with the promise of thousands of new jobs and a boost to local economies. The expectation was clear: build here, hire here, and help drive American industry forward. But aggressive immigration enforcement, including high-profile raids and increasingly strict visa controls, created a hostile environment for the very engineers, technicians, and managers needed to launch and operate these complex facilities. The message to foreign specialists was confusing: come help us build, but don't expect to feel welcome. The raid at Hyundai's plant was the moment these conflicting policies collided in dramatic fashion, halting progress on the factory floor and undermining trust between business leaders and government officials. The disruption rippled through the workforce, leaving both American and foreign employees anxious about their futures. Building a world-class factory isn't just about bricks and machines, it requires a diverse team of global experts. But U.S. enforcement agencies often treated these foreign specialists as potential threats, rather than valuable contributors to American industry. The administration's lack of coordination between economic and immigration policy sabotaged its own goals, creating confusion and frustration for companies trying to invest and grow in the U.S. Hyundai was invited to invest, celebrated for bringing opportunity, then punished for following through, as shifting policies closed doors that had just been opened. This policy paradox has destabilized not just one project, but America's reputation as a reliable destination for global business. International companies now question whether the U.S. is truly open for business, or if the welcome mat will be pulled out from under them. The fallout is a warning to policymakers and business leaders alike. You can't attract global capital while rejecting global talent. For America to remain competitive, it must resolve this contradiction and create an environment where investment and expertise are both truly welcome. On September 4, 2025, federal and state agents raided Hyundai's Georgia plant, turning a symbol of hope into a scene of chaos. Nearly 500 workers were arrested, including over 300 South Korean engineers and managers, essential to the plant's completion. The raid left workers panicked, some hiding for hours to avoid capture. Most South Korean specialists chose voluntary deportation, decapitating the project's leadership overnight. Construction ground to a halt, and the plant was left without the expertise needed to finish the job. The human and economic toll was immediate and severe. The raid transformed a flagship investment into a cautionary tale of policy gone wrong. Hyundai's response was swift and severe, suspending all expansion and considering a full withdrawal from Georgia. The company's leadership felt betrayed and the diplomatic fallout was immediate. South Korea lodged a formal protest, warning of serious consequences for trade and investment. The incident escalated into a major international crisis, straining the U.S.-South Korea alliance. U.S. officials scrambled to contain the damage, offering apologies and admitting policy conflict. Even President Trump acknowledged the blunder, but trust was already broken. Hyundai began exploring production in Mexico or South Korea, seeking stability. The raid damaged not just a business relationship, but a crucial geopolitical partnership. For Hyundai and South Korea, words were not enough to restore confidence. The U.S. was no longer seen as a stable place to do business. Hyundai's potential exit threatens to devastate Georgia's economy, wiping out over 8,000 promised jobs. Suppliers and local businesses face ruin, and communities lose a vital economic anchor. The loss would cripple America's EV supply chain, increasing reliance on foreign imports and undermining industrial self-sufficiency. The social impact is just as severe. Immigrant communities are gripped by fear, and labor rights groups condemn the climate of intimidation. Local governments face budget shortfalls and the region's economic future is in jeopardy. The Hyundai plant, once a symbol of shared prosperity, now represents economic precarity and division. The consequences ripple far beyond Georgia, threatening America's ambitions in advanced manufacturing. A single enforcement action has left a legacy of uncertainty and loss. The Hyundai raid sent a chilling message to global investors. U.S. policy is unpredictable, and even celebrated deals can unravel overnight. For years, America has positioned itself as a beacon for international business, promising stability and opportunity. But this sudden enforcement action has cast a shadow of doubt, making investors question whether the rules of the game can change without warning. America's reputation as a safe haven for foreign capital has been shaken. The sight of police at a major foreign-owned factory sent shockwaves through boardrooms from Seoul to Frankfurt and from Tokyo to London. Investors are now re-evaluating their risk calculations, wondering if their assets could be next. International companies now weigh incentives against the risk of sudden policy shifts and enforcement actions. Tax breaks and subsidies are no longer enough to offset the fear of abrupt government intervention. Executives are asking tough questions about the long-term security of their investments in the U.S. labor, and diplomatic experts warn that aggressive enforcement drives away the very companies that create high-quality jobs. The ripple effects could be felt across supply chains, local economies, and even diplomatic relations, as foreign governments push back against what they see as unfair treatment. Allies like Japan and Germany are watching closely, questioning whether their own investments are safe. Their governments are quietly seeking assurances, while their companies reconsider expansion plans and new projects on American soil. The incident has eroded trust, threatening America's ability to attract global partnerships. Once lost, trust is hard to regain, and the world's top investors are now looking elsewhere for more predictable environments. Analysts agree, the administration's failure to coordinate economic and immigration policy created a self-inflicted wound. The lack of clear communication and foresight has left both investors and workers uncertain about the future. The key question, will the U.S. learn from this costly mistake, or double down and further isolate itself? The answer will shape not just the future of foreign investment, but America's standing in the global economy for years to come. The world is waiting for an answer. Investors, governments, and workers everywhere are watching, hoping for signs of stability and renewed trust in the American promise. In the aftermath, US and South Korean diplomats scrambled to salvage the relationship and keep Hyundai's investment alive. South Korea demanded guarantees for its citizens and compensation for losses, while the US offered apologies and assurances. The outcome of these talks will decide if the project can be saved, or if it becomes a permanent casualty of policy failure. Meanwhile, Georgia's governor faces backlash for supporting the raid, and the crisis has split the Republican Party. Critics call the incident a prime example of chaotic governance and broken promises. The story has become a national symbol of ideology trumping economic strategy. America's reputation as a business-friendly nation is on the line. The Hyundai crisis is a wake-up call for U.S. economic policy. Attracting global investment requires more than incentives. It demands stability and coherent strategy. Industrial and immigration policy are intertwined. Failure to coordinate them leads to disaster. The U.S. must rebuild trust with global partners and honor its commitments. The debate isn't jobs versus enforcement, it's about creating smart policies that achieve both. America stands at a crossroads. Learn from this debacle and forge a new path, or risk losing future investments to more stable nations. The fate of the Georgia plant is more than a business deal. It's a test of America's vision for its economic future. The world is watching to see which path the U.S. will choose.